Hello and welcome to BUtalks, the podcast where we build our souls as well as our CVs. I'm your host, Allie, and today we are interviewing Dr. Kerry Hull, a full-time professor in the biology department. Not only is she a dedicated professor, but she has undertaken various research projects that have taken place in universities all around the world. We would like to thank the Experiential Learning Internship Grant Fund, the Bishop's Bookstore, and the Advancement Office for making this podcast series possible. I would first like to acknowledge the territory on which we hold BUtalks is the traditional and unceded territory of the Abenaki First Nations and the Abenaki Confederation. In performing land acknowledgement, we make what was invisible visible, and we invite the land, the First Nations people, and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission into our conversation today. So welcome, Dr. Hull, and thank you so much for speaking with us today. We're really excited to have you. So just to jump in right away, you earned your bachelor's degree in biology and your PhD in endocrinology, if I'm pronouncing that
correct.
Endocrinology, at the University of Alberta.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. Could you tell us a little bit about your undergraduate experience and maybe even what you did a little bit before you went into your bachelor's degree?
Sure. My undergraduate experience was sort of upside down Bishops. So I was in a small French-speaking faculty at the University of Alberta, where it was a very small residential community, but then we had access to English courses at the University of Alberta. So I took most of my courses in French at the Faculté Saint-Jean, it was called, but then as time went on, I took more and more courses at the big campus at the University of Alberta in more specialty areas, and so then I graduated with a degree from the U of A.
Okay, perfect.
So yeah, I'm a big fan of the residential college experience. It's wonderful.
Okay, great. Did you have any maybe regrets during your studies? Because I know that I heard that you wanted to go to med school and that was your goal maybe?
It was sort of my childhood goal, but I was fortunate in about my third year undergraduate, I started doing some research with a professor in the physiology department at the U of A. And I liked it so much, then I started doing a summer project that led to a master's, that led to a PhD, that led to a postdoc, and then I came to Bishop's for a 1 year, and after that I was going to go to med school. But in the end I just was so happy here, and I enjoyed the opportunities that I had here. So it was, med school for me is always kind of the path not taken. So I have a little regret, but I couldn't ask for, a better intellectual and family life than I have here.
It worked out, right?
It really worked out.
Perfect. Yeah. Did you do any internships, or did you get involved in any way when you were at university?
Can you be more specific?
Did you over the summer maybe, did you have any internships outside of school? Did you work?
I did research even after my first year.
Okay.
And it was in the University of Alberta Hospital. And so even though I was doing basic research, I still, had access. I could go on rounds with the more clinical professors. Mm-hmm. And so I did a fair bit of that. And that's actually when I realized that maybe I didn't want to go to medical school because it wasn't as interesting for me as the research aspects. I also did an exchange in my second year to Scotland.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that was wonderful. And that was really life-changing as well.
Right.
So I still have, friends and
you made a lot of friends when you were over there?
Yeah, and then, so the next summer I went back again just to visit, some of the friends I'd made the previous summer.
Did you do any more traveling when you were in Scotland, or did you just stay?
Oh, no, absolutely. I traveled.
Yeah.
This was back when communism was still a thing.
Yeah.
So I went with the political science department. We went to the Soviet Union for, I think it was 10 days.
Wow.
And
how was that?
That was amazing. Yeah. Because it was just when communism was starting to break down, so there was a flourishing black market, and so we experienced what it's like to sort of deal with a black market. We visited a family and with young people same ages of our own who were still living with their parents, and we got to find out about some of the challenges that they were facing. We ate ice cream in -30. We went to the Bolshoi Ballet.
Great.
Yeah, it was excellent. We went to Greece. I backpacked around Europe.
That must have been a lot warmer though.
Yeah, except we didn't realize how badly you can get sunburnt even when it's cloudy.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah. I wouldn't be able to handle that either.
That was another form of experiential learning.
Of course, yeah. Now you know. Now you know for future reference. So another question we have here is, how and why did you choose to come to Bishop's University, and what made you stay at this institution for as long as you have?
Well, what made me come was an article on a cork board at the University of Alberta saying they were looking for a geneticist. And I'm not a geneticist, but I was kind of applying for jobs anyway. And then they hired me because the person they originally hired for the job backed out at the last minute. So they were kind of desperate. So I came and I taught here for a year, and then the physiologist left. And so they asked if I wanted to stay full time. And by that point, I had already integrated into the community. I was amazed at how amazing it is to have friends in different departments. Mm-hmm. Like at big institutions, you just hang out with other physiologists. I didn't even know, other types of scientists. Whereas here, my friends were in philosophy and classics and political science and everything. And it was amazing how enriching that was, not only, personally, but also for my scholarship and how my career has developed.
Oh, that's great.
And then I met my husband, we had kids, and now I started getting obsessed with skiing and mountain biking. And
that's what I've heard. I heard you're an avid skier and you travel a lot, and you're also a marathon runner as well.
I haven't done marathons for a while.
Okay.
Just with children, it was a little bit harder to train for the long distance things. But yeah, we started doing marathons. There was a number of Bishops profs, and we would train together. And we ran some marathons and half marathons together. I did triathlons as well. Bishops had a triathlon team, I think, 20 years ago. So I did some triathlons with them. But now I've sort of switched more into skiing and mountain biking as my sport hobbies.
What's your favorite place to go skiing?
Smuggler's Notch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I was there yesterday.
Okay. Great. Well, perfect weather for it, right? We got a lot.
There's almost too much snow.
It's too much snow now.
Well, it raises the pressure. You feel you have to do the
I've never gone skiing before, so I
that's
don't know.
tragedy.
I know. I'm not coordinated for it.
Oh, I don't know. I'm becoming a ski instructor, so.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if I'm ever interested, I know where to go. Okay. So, what do you believe to be transformative about Bishops, and how do you manage your role as a professor in such a small community?
Okay, those are two very separate questions. Okay, all right, so what's transformative about Bishops? Well, I really believe that individuals are going to find their own place here. And it's not everyone, Bishops is not a match for everybody. Mm-hmm. But if something attracts you to Bishops, then you will find that experience available to you. For me, the transformation Bishops had on me was, again, sort of the interdisciplinary nature of the community here. So I think with a lot of students, it's that very same thing. They come set on a career in medicine or a career as a lawyer or whatever, but then they meet students, they meet professors who have passions very different from their own. And that can say, oh, well, maybe there is more to life than what I've wanted to do since I was 3 years old. And that can be very transformative. Mm-hmm. And that's not an experience you get at a big institution where you only hang out with people with your own discipline and you only take classes in your own discipline.
Yeah.
For others, it's living in Quebec. I think even though we're a little bit of a bubble here, you still are exposed to Quebec culture. It's a different way of thinking. You learn how to do the two-kiss, the bisou thing. And so for some, it can just be contact with a different culture. Mm-hmm. For others, I think it can be a single professor. I know there's so many examples of a student who has been changed by their relationship with the professor and the mentoring that they get from a professor. For others, it can be sports. It can be learning something new. It's that's the wonderful thing, is that because we're so small, students get to see everything. Mm-hmm. And so if there's transformation to be had, then chances are they will see the opportunity. Yeah. And I've already forgotten your second question.
Yeah, that's okay. That was great. I do agree with you. I think Bishops has shaped me as a person, me as a student, and it's great to be able to connect with teachers of all disciplines that I never really thought that I would speak to or interact with. So I definitely agree with you. So my second question was, how do you manage your role as a professor in such a small community?
That's also kind of an interesting question, because I came here as a baby. Like, I was 27 years old when I arrived here, and because at that point we hadn't hired a lot lately, I was a lot closer in age to the students than I was to my colleagues. Mm-hmm. So, it was kind of interesting having to develop sort of my role to make a line between the students as sort of my friends and my age appropriate individuals versus sort of the instructor-student role. I guess I'm a little bit traditional, especially because I have a family at home, that for me my role is in the classroom and, is meeting with students outside the classroom in my office and encouraging them to, I guess, just open their eyes a little bit to the other opportunities, because most of our students come in very set on a career. I see one of my most important roles as an instructor and as a mentor to say, look at all the things you can do. You don't have to become a doctor. And it's been wonderful to see students who have become doctors and they're fulfilled, and I love hearing from them again. But I also love hearing about students who took a totally different path and have found something that they're passionate about. For example, I just saw that one of our students is now starting up a company in Ghana.
Oh, wow.
To arrange for better delivery of healthcare information. And
that's amazing.
So it's it's just wonderful, the opportunities, and I think that came because she was able to take different courses, to interact with different people, and see that there was a whole world out there for her. And also, my goal as well is to transition students from a high school type learner to a mature learner, where they're going out and they're considering their information themselves, when they're working with others to create information. This is probably one of your later questions.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of the stuff I do in the classroom is basically to transition students away from being passive recipients of knowledge to individuals who can create, who can transform knowledge into something, greater.
Yeah, definitely. I think that a lot of students come here and they try out different things just because the opportunity is there for them, and they end up taking a whole different path than they had started out with. So I think that's awesome if bishops can provide that to students. Also, I was just wondering how different was it here at Bishops when you had first started to where you are now? How did you kind of transition into working here, and I guess just finding your way and kind of building your own
building my place here?
Yeah, building your place here. Was it overwhelming when you got here at first, or?
It was such a welcoming community.
Yeah.
Usually it takes a while to work yourself into a new community and find your space here. But within a year, I had a wonderful group of colleagues, and we'd, run together. We would, go bowling together. We would, go run marathons together. So it was a lot easier than I anticipated, and it was much easier than I'd encountered in any other community before. And the students as well, they were tremendously welcoming and understanding. In my first year, I had a concussion. I had a bike accident driving down Clough, I think it was.
Okay.
And so I was in the hospital for a concussion. And at this point, I think I'd been here for a month. And so I didn't know anybody. And I remember the ambulance worker saying to me, can I call somebody? And I was like, non, y a personne, there's nobody. But then later that day, another professor came and picked me up from the hospital, took me to their house, and basically put me up for a week.
Oh, wow.
Until, I'd gotten over the concussion.
That's
so,
sweet.
It wasn't a hard, and over the years, Bishops has changed, considerably. I think, in my opinion, it's improved. There's so much more research now. It's just totally changed. The feeling of the place. Professors are super engaged. It's definitely changing, and I found my place, I guess, by just doing what I want to do instead of. Bishops is a place where I know it's true for students, but it's also true for faculty. We have enormous freedom in pursuing what we truly are passionate about, which I think is much more productive than having someone say, okay, you must produce 3 papers this year and get 2 grants.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Well, another question that I have here, I think you kind of already answered it a little bit, but I have, how do you build social and emotional intelligence into your classroom?
Well, I do a lot of group work.
Yeah.
I'm a huge believer in the fact that students have to learn to talk to each other in a different way. And so something that I've always enjoyed doing here is I like to have classes where science students and non-science students mix, and where they have to work together and they have to communicate their strengths to each other. And so I do a lot of what's called POGL, which is a long name, but it's process oriented guided inquiry learning.
Okay.
And the whole point is that the content is important, but also the skills that students develop is equally important. And so basically each student will have a role. Say one student is going to be the manager, another student the reader, another student is going to be the recorder. And that giving students a role sort of gives them confidence to work in a group together. And it's fun to watch over the semester as these roles kind of become internalized into them. And so I see students doing things like making sure that every student is heard in the group, including the shy ones. And then at the end of the course, I always ask them a question on a take-home final, which is, which of the competencies, the liberal arts competencies, do you think that you've developed in this course, and what do you need more work on? And some of my favorite comments are students who say, I didn't realize how I dominated a group before, and now I'm much better at listening to other students. Another student will say, I have more confidence now in speaking my mind. Or a student will say, what's another example? Just skills in maybe taking information in one form and converting it to another form that other students can understand. So I do think that is part of my job, is actually fostering the development really of students working together. And a way I can get students to sort of buy in a little bit is we do this exercise where they evaluate curriculum vitae as if they were hiring somebody for a job. Okay. And they all pick things like, I want someone who can work with others, even if they don't like that other person. I want someone who can communicate well. And then at the end I say, why didn't any of you say GPA? And they go, right, I do have to develop these skills. Yeah. And students kind of they think that you either are or not good at those things, but just like any other skill, they can be developed. And there's a lot of literature and research out there showing how, as instructors, we can encourage that growth.
Okay, great. So another one that I have here is, did you ever have a professor or mentor that you try to emulate in your classes?
Well, back when I was a student, it was kind of old school traditional lecturing all the time, where you're in a huge auditorium, the instructor speaks and you listen. So for many years I did the same approach, but now I've sort of transitioned how I teach. So now I learn more from, I guess, my colleagues. Some of the people I do my pedagogical research with, I've gone to workshops with them and I've watched how they teach and how they are good at involving, getting students to work together, how they're able to keep control of a classroom that's still chaotic. So, I've had some excellent mentors for content, for research, but for teaching, I've actually had to turn more to my colleagues now.
Yeah. No, that's understandable. Yeah. Could you speak a little bit about the significance of the psychological health and well-being research cluster here at Bishops? Because you are a part of, you're an associate member of it. Yeah. So yeah, could you maybe just speak about it a little bit, maybe explain what it is and kind of what you do?
Sure. So the cluster is basically just a grouping of researchers under a chair who is really concentrating on doing research as their primary goal. And then this chair basically tries to gather other researchers around him or her to form research networks in order to give a more interdisciplinary view of a particular research problem, and then to just be more productive. So I'm involved right now in a cluster research grant, and we're looking at stress and evaluation. So for me, I've done a lot of research in pedagogy. I have some colleagues who have done a lot of work in stress, and so we were at a cluster meeting. We're like, well, let's do a research project that brings together our two interests. So we're basically looking at what are some different ways that we can make evaluations still indicative of your performance, but at the same time less anxiety provoking. So the cluster is sort of producing those sorts of interdisciplinary interactions. They've also done, I believe, the nap room. Have you tried the nap room?
Oh, I haven't tried it yet. Or the snooze room, I think, what I'm hearing, what I'm reading in the emails. I've heard about it. I haven't gone to check it out. It's in this building, right?
I think so. It's in the International Center.
Okay. Have you gone to see it, or no?
No.
You don't need a nap during the day.
I have an office before that closes.
That is true.
Which is very handy.
No, I don't know if there's have been like a lot of students that have tried it out yet.
Okay,
but it's I really liked the idea. I think because I'm a little farther from campus, about a 25-minute walk. So it's nice, especially in the winter when I don't really want to have to go back and forth all the time, and maybe I just need a refresher.
Just a refresher.
Yeah.
Instead of the library.
Yeah. So that came from the cluster?
That came from the cluster. Okay. So we have an excellent coordinator right now, which is Wade.
Okay.
And he's wonderful at just making it easier for us to do research.
Right.
And making it easier and fostering connections between different researchers. And the cluster is also great at making links between the university and the community. So they do a lot of outreach with the community to bring what we're doing here to sort of the users and those who will benefit. So the cluster is really being a leader as well in what's called knowledge mobilization, which is involving the users of the research and not only the planning of the research, but as well making sure that they receive the research and then that they can use it to change their lives.
Okay. Well, my next question kind of leads into a little bit what you were saying, because I know that stress is a huge factor for students, especially when they're at university studying, and finding a good way to cope is difficult a lot of the time, and it can be really overwhelming. So how can students, in your opinion, reduce stress levels or find certain coping mechanisms that can help their mental and physical well-being while studying at the same time?
Yeah,
it's a big question.
It's a big question. I can tell you what I do to deal with stress myself.
That might help. I mean, me personally, I've found my own mechanisms through other people and what they've told me, and kind of trying out different ways to calm me down and reduce any anxiety that I'm having. So it could help. Your coping mechanisms could help other.
I exercise a
Yeah.
lot. I sometimes go to CrossFit, and sometimes I find heavy metal music can be very effective.
Right.
So it depends. There's the kind of lifestyle aspects of things that I think we hear a lot about. But I think there's also stuff that we can do academic-wise to really decrease our stress. I'm a big believer in being a thoughtful studier. So in thinking, basically planning how you're going to study, making sure that you're studying the most effective way, because there's tons of research out there. Like, we know how students learn now, how students can learn best. So for example, there's tons of studies that show that highlighting, just going through your textbook and highlighting, not so good, because it causes you to gives you false confidence. Yes, oh yeah, I recognize that. I'm confident that I know it, but in actual fact, you're just familiar with it and you don't necessarily understand it. So I encourage students to make sure that they're really actively engaged. So study less, but study smarter. Go to learning objectives, write out answers. Teach your teddy bear the topics, or a friend, because sometimes friends don't want to hear about what you're doing, let's be honest.
Yeah. At times, yeah, I'd say.
Yeah, and we offer strategies. There's various talks on how to study smart, and I think students maybe think that studying as they did in the past is still going to work. But sometimes it's actually their study habits that are contributing to their stress, and that's kind of a fixable problem.
Right. Yeah, I actually had one of my professors mention that you should kind of plan out your day, like block by block, and know that maybe at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. you just cut off your day and you're done, and you've done everything you've needed to throughout the day. And then after that mark each day, you kind of like close your email, you close your books, and you take time to relax or do something else. And he actually mentioned that at the beginning of the semester, and I've been trying to incorporate that myself, and it is quite difficult just because I feel like I need to be working all the time.
But maybe you're an evening worker, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you need to take your break from 10 to 12.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it could be during the day. I tend to work a lot at night as well, and
well, I think that's a student circadian rhythm thing.
It's kind of like a 24/7 thing for students as well. They kind of don't really know when to turn off and just take a step back. So
turning off the cell phone is a really good thing.
Yeah.
So I actually, in my classes, I don't allow students to use their phones.
Okay.
Because even being able to focus on something other than your phone for a while, it can help.
Yeah, I think that's a good initiative as well. I've had professors in the past that have been no laptops, no phones. If we see one, we'll dock like some percentage points off of your grade, which I think is a really good idea, because especially early in the morning, if students if they've had maybe a few hours sleep, they're not in a good state, and they wake up in the morning and they're just on their phone, and nothing can
go in.
No.
And if you're always, you can tell a student who has their phone, artfully hidden behind their purse or their bag. You can see when a text goes up, because you lose them.
Yeah.
You lose them for that instant.
Yeah.
And so I think when we think about trying to reduce stress, if students are here to learn, then maybe make sure that you're learning the most effectively. And sometimes that's the root. If that's the root of the problem, then no degree of meditation and massage and exercise and self-care is going to help.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're studying and if your schoolwork is causing you stress, then I encourage students to come and talk to somebody, like talk to me, talk to we have a study center, I can't remember what it's called, Accommodations, I guess, does some study help.
I'm not sure. You mean like the writing center? Is that
Not necessarily. I don't know. I just thought we had someone who offered some seminars in various study skills.
Oh yeah. I can't remember the name right now, but I do know that exists somewhere.
Yeah,
right?
I think if students can understand that they actually can, like there's things that they can do to decrease their academic stress, and if that's the root of the problem, then I encourage students to hit that.
Mm-hmm. Do you know of any other maybe groups or somewhere on campus that students can like go to speak to maybe, or?
Well, it depends. Like if your problem is math, then go to the math center.
Yeah.
If your problem is writing, go to the writing center. Spend time there. As for study skills, Student Services does offer, quite a few sessions on good study skills. Or go see a professor.
Mm-hmm.
Find a professor that you respect and say, look, I'm struggling here. How can I learn your information better? Like I want to do well. I want to learn this, not just to get a good job, good grade, can you give me some strategies?
Right.
Yeah. So I think it's going to have to be individual, but it would be nice if students, again, started setting up study groups for each other. I know like this happens on a small scale. I've seen it in business in the halls. I know biology students do it. This is what helps for me. Because I'm a big believer that students can help students sometimes more than we can help you.
Yeah, I do think, as to add on to what you had said before, I think it's really nice to be here at Bishop's too and have that kind of connection with your professors and feel comfortable to go speak to them about any issues that you're like any student is having, and it's nice to be able to speak to them and kind of get their advice, because that's not always available to students at every other university. Right?
Yeah, and I've had students, I've had business students come to talk to me. A few years ago, I did a Bishop Speaks talk on basically metacognition and how to learn better. And so then after that, I'd have students from different divisions who came to my office hours. I was happy to help them out. Yeah.
That's really nice to have. It's really nice for students to know that all professors are open for them to come see them.
And there's professors in every division who I know personally who are so willing, and I've helped so many students, but the student has to actually go and ask for help. Right. We're not going to come out and grab you and pull you in and say, you need to study better. Yeah. You're adults now, and so we have to treat you as adults.
Definitely. Okay. I had a couple questions about your research, because I've tried to look into a little of what you've been doing, but unfortunately I don't know that much about like biology and science. I'm not very like science oriented, I guess you could say, but I read a little bit about your recent publications kind of dealing with growth hormone and reproduction, along with like some recent reviews as well. So could you maybe touch base on a little bit of your research that you did in that subject and its role in reproduction and on various factors like fertility and everything? Maybe just a really quick overview of what you've been researching.
Sure. Yeah. So my PhD was looking at, and my postdoc was looking at growth hormone. Excuse me, and roles of growth hormone that are kind of non-traditional, not related to growth.
Okay.
So we looked at, for example, what growth hormone does to your fertility, and how if you don't have enough growth hormone, your fertility can be a little bit low. But at the same time, if you give someone too much growth hormone, there can be a tendency to have tissues grow too large, and that's not something you want either. So and I also was looking at hormones that regulate calcium metabolism in your blood. Again, too high, too low, not good. And we were looking in different species to try to find out, again, different roles for the hormones that control calcium. What else do they do? But I haven't done growth hormone research for probably 10 years, 15 years now.
Okay.
So now my research actually centers in the classroom and how we can get students to learn better. So I publish more in education research journals, different activities that I've done in the classroom that have worked well for me, I publish them so other instructors can use them. I also research different techniques, for example, concept mapping. How well does the information that students learn by concept mapping transfer to other types of learning? So basically just adding to the literature on how students learn and how we can teach them better, how we can develop these process skills that we talked about, like teamwork and, social intelligence. So right now that's kind of my research focus.
Okay, great. Because I know that you did a bit of research in other countries. You'd gone to New Zealand and the UK. Is there any other country that you want to visit in the future, or another university that you would like to conduct research in? Or?
Well, right now I'm working a lot with instructors in the States.
Okay.
And so I went to Kentucky a couple of weeks ago, and we did some professional development in a junior college to basically see, okay, where are these instructors? How can we help them teach their students? And they have a very diverse population. A lot of mature students, a lot of military individuals, a lot of single parents. And so basically it's not exciting, but right now what I'm enjoying doing is visiting different junior colleges and try to think about how we can take the methods that we've tested, on predominantly Caucasian young populations, how well do these methods work for all these other learners? And this is where, all of our nurses are coming from, for example. And so for places, let me think. I think I'm going to go to Oregon next year, and that's going to be fun.
Okay, nice.
Lots of microbreweries.
Okay.
Which is good. Lots of mountain biking.
Great.
Yeah, so mostly I'm just focusing on North America because I traveled a lot when I was younger. I went to Israel for research, and India.
Oh, really?
Spent a lot of time in Great Britain because I had collaborators there.
How does each country is completely different. Did you have to kind of approach your research differently in each country that you were in, and were you doing different things?
Well, bench research, where you're actually in the lab doing stuff, it's the same wherever you go. You can walk into a lab, you're going to pick up the same equipment, and you're going to do exactly the same things. It's just in lesser developed countries, you're going to have less, bells and whistles, but it's pretty much the same thing. So that's why researchers can travel so easily, because English is the language, and you can just take yourself from one lab bench and you put yourself in another lab bench. You do your research, but then you still have this wonderful culture all around. And so that's what the great things that having a research career did for me. Spending time in Israel, and Israel was fascinating.
Yeah, could you talk a little bit more about Israel and what you did when you were there? And
it was more just a conference and visiting some labs, but then we did tour around a little bit, and it was just, the culture is just so different there because, being a professional, we're so safe here, and there, you're taking a bus somewhere and there's, 18-year-olds with giant machine guns falling asleep with their head on your shoulder. It's a siege mentality, so people are not very patient, for instance. They're not as polite as Canadians we would expect. Right. But at the same time, they're very to the point. And so that was interesting. And then in India, that was probably the biggest culture shock I've ever had. And we were lucky that we were visiting with people who lived there, with locals. So they would take us out, for meals. They would take us shopping, to buy, clothing. And what we take for granted here compared to what they have there, 11-year-old boy, we made friends with an 11-year-old boy, and he so wanted to go to school, but he had to spend his day begging, and he had a guru, and it was just, changes your life to travel. And so I hope all Bishop students do take advantage of, the best fund, or, Bishop students are so lucky in the opportunities they have for student travel.
Definitely.
And really experiencing the culture, not just being a tourist.
I really support the exchange program too here. I went on exchange myself. I went to the UK. I have quite a few friends. The University of Hertfordshire, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I think I get it wrong every time.
It's tricky.
It's about 20 minutes north of London, it was nice because I was out of the city. It wasn't too busy. It was kind of quiet, but I could just jump on the train and get into London, which was crazy. Fabulous. Yeah, I was there over the break again to visit some friends because I made some friends when I was over there. But it was quite an experience, and it's a lot easier to travel, especially when I'm over there and it's cheaper and everything's a little bit closer. I can't even travel across Canada because I don't have the money for it, or it's just a little too far for me. So it was nice being over there and having that many opportunities. And
so many cultures packed close together.
Yeah. It's incredible. You take an hour flight and
you're in a whole other world.
Yeah, it's great though. Yeah, I really liked it. Where were you in the UK when you were?
I was in Dundee, in Scotland.
Okay.
But I had a friend who was on exchange in Leeds, so I hung out with her a lot. And we went down to London quite a bit.
Yeah, that I was going back and forth between the school that I went to in Leeds, because that's one of the partner universities with Bishops. So I think it's great because I think they're trying to expand their partner universities as well to get a little bit more opportunity for the students, which is really nice. And I know a lot of people that are gone right now, and I think it's nice to have that opportunity as well. I hope a lot of students can do it. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so I have one of the main questions that we ask all of the professors that we speak to is, how can students look to build their souls rather than their CVs? It's a kind of a big question, and
I think by being open to relationships with people that you don't instantly match with. If I think, over my past, some of the most richest relationships I've had that have built my soul, and I do believe, building your soul is something that you can often do. It's the interactions with other people that have built my soul, so to speak. And often it's individuals who at first glance was not someone who was compatible with me. And so I think at Bishops, because you're packed together for 4 years, you get to know people and you can take time to develop relationships and just to be open to developing relationships with someone who is different than you. And I think that can be very enriching. Again, we've talked about taking classes outside your discipline. Like, what builds an individual's soul can be learning about astronomy, can be taking a religion course, can be taking a classics course. One of the ways that I built my soul here is by talking to humanities professors and going for long runs and discussing, Nietzsche and Kierkegaard and, some of the great thinkers of the past who have had the time, who have had entire lifespans to really focus on building their soul and really grappling with these things. So I think taking some humanities, even if you're in business or science, something hard that challenges you that still you're passionate about. And then by giving back. Bishops is huge on encouraging students to give back to their community, and however that can be. So I'm on the BEST, I'm involved a little bit in the BEST project, and it's wonderful to see how these students do, give back, in the projects that they do, and then as they bring their projects back to Bishops.
Could you speak a little bit about the BEST Fund and how that works for students?
For students? Yeah. Well, basically, students can come up with a project that they would like to do. That's experiential, and they have to have a faculty mentor to make sure that it's the process is going to be authentic and real and rewarding for the student. And then they make an application, and we fund between 9 and 15 projects every year. Sometimes the projects are relatively straightforward, maybe doing research in a new lab in France or Switzerland or something. Maybe it's going to do public service, acting as an intern in the United States Senate, working with the MySOT project, going to Thailand, working with refugees. It's basically, the wonderful thing about the BEST project is that it's truly individual. And basically what we're looking for is students who are passionate about doing something. And it's one of my favorite things at Bishops, because we are able to let the student accomplish or let the student pursue something that they're passionate about. So we would like to see more applications. So I'm hoping that next year a lot more students will find something they want to do, invest in getting a mentor and filling out an application, and hopefully then they'll be able to do something that can be transformative for them. I don't know if you know any students who have done a BEST project.
I actually had a friend that went to Thailand, and I'm assuming it was the MASOT project. That's the one.
Well, there's MASOT, and then sometimes we have students who will go and sort of work in a peripheral. On the BEST.
Okay, I'm pretty sure he was in the MASOT project, and he said it was an incredible experience, and I'm pretty sure he went back after and did more work, and it's nice because I guess it gives students this opportunity to go somewhere they've never been before and do something that they're really passionate about, but it also opens their eyes and kind of makes them a little bit more comfortable about maybe going back or going somewhere else, and gives them a little bit more confidence in what they can do and achieve. So,
and it can be extremely effective for helping students to decide what careers for them. We have students who go on a best, because it's supposed to be related to your career aspirations as well. We have students who come back and say, well, that taught me that I'm not going to have to change my mind. And then we have students who come back who are even more passionate about what they wanted to do. So it's also important to start closing some doors as students as well, right? To decide, okay, this is something I wanted to do, but for such and such a reason, I don't think I want to do that anymore. And that's really hard, and I think that's part of
that process.
Yeah, because that's what I did. Yeah. And I think that's a big part of the stress of undergraduates is you've lived your life, and as parents we tell you everything is possible, you can be whatever you want. And then undergraduate, you have to start saying, okay, I can't be that, I can't be that, I can't be that. And that's not easy. That's not easy for any of us.
Yeah, I think it's a little overwhelming for students just to actually say no to something and be like, and just kind of focus. It's hard because we're a little all over the place sometimes, and we want to do so many things at once, but we don't have the time or the energy to. So I think it's nice, especially here at Bishop's, that you can do so many things and try it out once, maybe just for one semester in a short period of time, and that helps you kind of navigate through and
it's okay to say no. Just because you start something, you obviously fulfill your commitment, but then it's okay to say, you know what, I'm so done with that, and to stop it. And I know sometimes when we start things, we think we have to do them forever. I know I'm like that, and my kids are like that. I'm like, no, let's ditch the speed skating. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I think it's difficult for students to say no, and because they think that's kind of their mentality, is to just do it well and get it done, and and it's hard. Yeah, I mean, it's hard.
And to build a CV.
Exactly. Right? it's hard to build our souls as well as our CVs.
But I think I think those things should be together. Yeah. The older I get, the more I don't do things I don't want to do, because I trust my instincts that if it doesn't feel authentic to me, then it is not going to build my soul, but also it's not going to effectively build my CV. So that's, for instance, why I stopped doing bench research, because I realized I was just going through the motions. So I wasn't being very effective as a researcher, but also it was not good for my soul. So that's why I switched to pedagogical research, to education research, because I love it, and also I'm much more effective. So that's what I always tell my students, don't do something because you think it's going to look good on your med school application, because at the interview it's going to come out. And we always evaluate students based on their authenticity. So if something's building your CV and it's not building your soul, then chances are it's not the right thing for you, and it's not going to do either.
Right, definitely. Okay, well, I think that about covers it. Okay. So I just want to say thank you so much for being on the podcast with us, and we got to know you a little bit better, and you gave some insight into what you do and maybe a little bit of advice for students as well, which we really appreciate. So thank you so much. So yeah, thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.